Hello everyone, welcome to SwitchUp. In today's video, we're going to be having a look at every game we reviewed for the month of October and ranking them in terms of the score that they got, lowest to highest. There were 9 games in October in total. It was actually quite a good month, big month in terms of some of the releases.
Yeah, we've had some great games actually. Let us know in the comments if you picked any of these up and if you missed any as well. If you want to save yourself 5% on your eShop credit, you can do so over at switchup.gg. Get 5% in cash back.
So what was the highest rated game for the month of October on SwitchUp? Well, let's find out.
In at number 9 then, we've got Pokemon Legends ZA. Now this has been a really interesting game to review because it's like split personality. On the one hand, in my opinion at least, they've done some really interesting things with the gameplay mechanics. I like the real-time combat. It just feels like a quicker version of Pokemon. But having that real-time combat means you don't have load screens and things like that. So from that aspect, you can just run in, fight a Pokemon, run out with your catch, hopefully. You can also do the sneaking around and throwing a Pokeball and hoping you can catch them. So I really like the actual gameplay of it. I thought the world was its weakest aspect by a country mile. You'll see reams of comments on any Pokemon video where people are like, oh, I miss the open world. You know, I want to be going through valleys and fields, not round a weird version of Paris.
Yeah, I think that was my biggest, not issue, but when it was coming out, it wasn't quite out yet. It was my concern that the world would feel a bit generic and boring. But it's nice to hear that the gameplay holds up. I mean, ultimately, that's what you want, isn't it?
It really is. Yeah, it does. And it really does hold up, actually, surprisingly well. This one got a SwitchUp score of 70%.
Okay, moving on to 8th place then, and we have 2 Point Museum, which was one of our more recent reviews, and this is the third game in the 2 Point series, all of which have been on, well, the first 2 were on Switch 1. This is actually a Switch 2 game, isn't it?
It is. We played this on our other channel, actually, SwitchUp Extra, where we just sit and chat about the games. And initial impressions, as far as the gameplay go, are quite good. You know, we like the idea of the museum. It ran well enough. When you go back for the full review, which we've done, which this is obviously based on, that's when you start to see things that don't quite sit where you feel they should. There were certain elements of this game. It had this system where you go out on expeditions, and they didn't flow very well. So you'd end up sending half your staff on this expedition. The rest of them are kind of sat around waiting, and you're waiting as well. And it creates this gameplay roadblock, whereas in the previous titles, things like 2 Point Hospital, you do your research and then you'd be able to build the rooms that you want. Here you were constantly waiting for that expedition to return, not knowing kind of what it was going to have with it. It removed some of that, I don't know, the creative freedom that you got with the older games. So it was a good game. I did enjoy it, and I miss the fact that it didn't have those controls.
Yeah, no mouse controls on a Switch 2 release is just a very bizarre choice. This is something, or this sort of game is one I would say where you'd be showcasing it, wouldn't you, and saying, look how good this version of this game can be on this console. Unfortunately, it didn't have that, but ultimately, as you said, you enjoyed it, and it got a SwitchUp score of 76%. In 7th place then, another one of your reviews, Mark, we had Powerwash Simulator 2.
Yeah, this was a funny one to get Glen to play or look at. He was like, what?
Yeah, I mean, I know this has got quite the following. Certainly the first game has, and I played it for about half an hour, and it didn't quite grab me in the way it seems to have grabbed everyone else. But I was interested to hear your thoughts on it, because I think you felt the same initially.
Definitely, yeah. I just think, for me, it's one of those where it's about flow, and playing the first game that had gyroscope added into it gives you that flow experience. Playing this where for some random reason it doesn't include gyro at launch, or mouse mode for that matter, it doesn't have that sense of flow. It's actually a little bit clunky, you know, which is not the way, in my opinion, this game should be played.
Yeah, that lack of gyro at launch is a very strange choice for sure. Hopefully they will patch it in at some point. Without it though, it got a SwitchUp score of 79%.
The next one is Absolum. Now, this has been receiving very high praise. I think this is the team's first foray into an independent experience that isn't based on an IP. It's .emu, isn't it?
Yes.
And they took the beat 'em up down a slightly different, I don't know, avenue I mean, that works on multiple levels, actually. That really does. Chicken. They took it on a completely different route, and where you have this roguelite element that allows you to choose your path at the end of each area. And then you have these persistent characters that have meta progression. And I like that. I did enjoy it. It took a while for me to fully figure out what they were doing. And I think for maybe raw beat 'em up fans, it would feel slightly odd.
Yeah, I played a couple of hours of this with you, and so nowhere near as much as you, obviously, for review. But just in terms of someone that's a big beat-em-up fan, I did feel that it didn't quite marry with that roguelite element. Restarting runs and playing the same levels over and over again is almost at odds with the beat-em-up experience, where it's short, sharp levels, big and flashy, move on to another environment. So I didn't like that personally, but I did enjoy the core gameplay. Like, the actual beat-em-up experience was decent. It was just a strange, almost juxtaposition of the two, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think there are some really nice ideas that once you get to grips with them, do work well. Things like the offensive parry, that was a really good mechanic. Like, you could go through levels almost invincible if your timing was good enough and if you enjoy that. But again, that's slightly at odds with traditional beat-em-up mechanics. So at least it's a new idea for once, and fair play to them for trying something a bit different. This one got a SwitchUp score of 82%.
Moving into the top 5 then, and in 5th place we had Yooka-RePlaylee, which is a remaster of Yooka-Laylee that released some years back, and is from Playtonic, who themselves have a few of the core members of the Rare team from back in the day. Now, I'd never played Yooka-RePlaylee. I remember it getting, decent review scores back in the day, but when I played this one, it felt so good. It almost made me question why the first game didn't score quite highly. So I went back and played the first one and compared them, and they've added a lot of content to this new version.
Yeah, there's talk of like a complete gameplay overhaul. So what does that actually look like? What have they done?
Well, as well as visual upgrades and things like that, which is what I was expecting it to be for the vast majority. They've actually doubled the amount of collectibles in terms of your pages, the things that you collect to unlock new levels, and new worlds. So there's a lot more going on in the game world, a lot more enemies, just everything feels a lot more alive than it did in that first release.
Nice. It looks good as well, and it did run well on Switch 2, didn't it?
It does. It's 30 frames per second, which is disappointing. I don't see why it couldn't have been 60. But aside from that, really a lot of fun. A game that I almost wish I'd played back in the day because I enjoyed it so much, but now maybe playing it this way first was the way to go, Either way though, really enjoyed my time with this one. It got a SwitchUp score of 85%.
I would love to send a modern gamer who'd never experienced the N64 back to play some of the classics at 19 frames per second or whatever it was.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and being delighted about it as well.
We were like, wow.
Yeah. Moving into 4th place then, and we had Plants vs. Zombies Replanted. So another remaster of an older game. This one hasn't had quite so much go into it in terms of that visual look. It looks very much as it did back in the day. They have added a few more game modes to this version though, and it does have touchscreen support, which you would expect, but also mouse support, which we mentioned earlier in another game wasn't there, and it makes a big difference it being here this time round.
Yeah, it does. The way that it's implemented as well, I think some people felt should have been different. They felt that maybe you should be clicking and dragging, but that's not the way the game worked back in mobile. Like, it's just not. You just click where you want. You click where you want to place it. Job done. So for me, that was a complete non-issue. I was quite surprised actually to see the level of hysteria around that.
Yeah, this is a game that's had a lot of negativity around it in terms of review scores, or not even reviews necessarily, but just videos made about it. So if it's one that you're unsure about, watch a few other videos. Don't just take our word for it. But I can assure you, we thought this game was great. We don't see what the hysteria is about, and we gave it a SwitchUp score of 86%. So moving into 3rd place then, and we had Mario Galaxy 1 and 2. And when Mario Galaxy is the 3rd place game on the list, you've had a decent month, haven't you?
It's really nice to actually just to hear that. There were years where people were like, oh, I'd love to see those brought back together. Obviously we had the All-Stars bundle that disappeared.
Yeah, it had the first game of these two on it. Yeah, I mean, these hold up incredibly well in terms of gameplay. I will go so far as to say that in terms of pure level design, these are definitely the best of the 3D Mario games, and they're some of the best of Mario games in general. And this is from someone that didn't really pay them a huge amount of attention back in the day, but it just shines through still to this day. In terms of everything else, not a huge amount has been added to this collection.
I think the biggest thing is for people that enjoy handheld, they added the handheld gyroscope support, which makes a big difference if that's something that you use.
Yeah, definitely. What I will say though is that I do feel that the pointing or gyro aspects of the game are the weakest. They're obviously the remnants from the Wii originals, and having levels where you have to tilt your Switch or tilt your controllers to race down a slide or something, they just don't feel as good these days as perhaps they were when gaming was at its waggle heaviest. That being said, these are few and far between, and as I said, they are great games. I just think as a collection, more could have been done, and that would have certainly boosted the score up past what it got. Plus, I think the price is a bit too high, bearing that in mind. Ultimately, though, it got a SwitchUp score of 88%. The
penultimate one then is Persona Reload. Persona 3 Reload, actually, which you reviewed, I believe.
I did indeed, yeah. So this is a remake of Persona 3, obviously, which released back on, I think it was PS2, and then it had a PSP release that was a kind of a bumped up version of that original. I hadn't played Persona 3, I'd played a bit of 4 back in the day. And I'll be honest, a lot of this I really enjoyed. Like the battling, the kind of setting, the way they've remade it in terms of the graphical overhaul and all of that looks fantastic. The only part for me that held it back a bit, well, two parts really. It's a bit of a slow burn to begin with. And the way that the dungeons are laid out, the kind of labyrinth that you go into and the floors that you visit in order to make progress in the game, I felt that hadn't aged very well. And perhaps if you were going to remake it, perhaps a few more tweaks on that part of it would have really bumped this score up.
Yeah, this was one of those games where the demo as well didn't match the final build that we experienced. So the demo obviously had quite a few issues, didn't it, with stuttering and some frame pacing issues. The final build still has a slight frame pacing issue, but it had been massively improved by the version that we reviewed. I do still think this is a game that should be running at 60 though. It's just one of those.
Yeah, and we've had a couple of those in this list, haven't we, where that frame rate should be higher really, bearing in mind the hardware it's now running on, but the core gameplay is a huge amount of fun, and it got a SwitchUp score of 89%. And finally for the month then, in first place, we had Dragon Quest 1 and 2 HD 2D Remake.
Yeah, say what you will about Square Enix, they are one of the few teams at the moment that seem to be avoiding most of the hate. You know, there's this online mob, you know, that there's always some issue, isn't there, with games? But in terms of the actual games that they're making and pumping out, they're really doing a good job, and it shows a lot of effort, doesn't it?
Yeah, this has been a month of remasters or remakes, and this was definitely the best of them, not just in terms of gameplay, but in terms of that handcrafted, loving feeling of truly recreating the game from the ground up. There are still some bits I felt could have been added to further improve the quality of life features, but there are a lot of features here. The two games are great, and it was also one of those strange instances, Mark, I don't know if you've ever felt this, where if you played 1 and 2 back in the day, 2 would have felt like a massive upgrade on 1 because you had 1 party member in the first game and 3 as it was in the second. So it felt like an evolution. But playing it these days, because we're so used to having parties in RPGs, playing the first game with just 1 member made that one feel a bit more fresh.
Yeah, I've actually heard, you said that the other day, and then I saw someone else mention it, like straight after another video. I was like, oh, okay, yeah, sweet. It is, yeah, it's just about things feeling fresh. And now that's what feels fresh.
Yeah, but both great games. Really enjoyed these. Lovingly crafted. Got a SwitchUp score of 91%.
Lovely stuff. Let us know in the comments the ones that you've been playing out of these, if you missed any of them as well, or if they joined your ever-growing backlogs.
Don't forget, we do have a second channel now. I think Mark mentioned it a minute ago, funny enough. SwitchUp Extra, where we do initial impressions of games and just have a chat while we're playing. Our most recent release at the time of this video would be our Mortal Kombat Legacy collection, and there will be a full review of that coming soon too. I'll put a card to our impressions video in the top right-hand corner if you want to give that a watch. And as Mark also said at the beginning, don't forget, if you're looking for eShop credit, you can use our website, switchup.gg, to get yourself your eShop credit, and you'll save yourself 5% of the purchase price, or at least get it back in cash back. Thank you to our patrons and our channel members for your continued support, and to each and every one of you for watching our videos. Take care, and until next time, happy gaming.